How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. Now, before I get into explaining what we're doing today, you can see the tank here. I did say I was gonna put out like my biggest build in the next video, which would have been this video, but unfortunately I gotta wait at least like a month and a half, 2 months until that tank is like ready, fully grown in and all that. So in the meantime, I decided, since I have way too many tanks. I don't know why I have so many tanks, and I don't even have that much space, but it's just tanks I've accumulated over time. But anyway, that's why I'm bringing you this video today. That's the only reason, because I need to let that tank fully grow in. But anyway, aside from that, today we're going to be working on this shallow tank. This is a 6.5 gallon shallow tank that I got a really long time ago as well. I feel like a lot of these tanks I got a really long time ago, and they're just kind of, like I said, you just accumulate tanks. When you really get into the hobby, you start accumulating tanks and a bunch of different rocks and a bunch of different plants and gravel and all that stuff. You know how it goes. But I decided that I needed to make another tank for my guppies, because you can actually see it here. This tank was the guppy breeding tank. It didn't go very well. It ended up it just became a mess. Somehow their snails got in the tank, and I think they probably came with some plants that I got somewhere at a shop. Um, and then eventually just the whole tank was filled with snails. You could see the little dots everywhere. I'm not the biggest fan of snails, but I mean, I don't mind one or two snails in my tank, but it was just way too much. And then the rocks and all that just kind of started falling apart. It was lava rock. So basically, just the whole tank needed redoing. Plants weren't growing in well. So I was like, you know what? Let me just break it down. And I have the guppies currently in another tank, just kind of holding them. But this is going to be their new home. But yeah, I think for this video or this scape, I'm gonna be going for like a triangular composition that's gonna start from this side. I only have one piece of wood. I don't really want to put too much wood in here, too much hardscape, because it's a small tank and I want to have as much space as possible. I do feel that this is probably more like guppy size, because guppies are small. But anyway, I feel like I've been talking for way too long. Let's just go ahead and get into the build and start figuring out exactly how it is that I'm going to do this. Let's just go ahead and get started. By the way, I did notice that there's a bit of a shadow on the bottom of the tank. That'll go away immediately, because the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some sand. I feel like I always use the same sand for every scape, but like I always say, and the main purpose of this channel is to keep scaping simple and try to use things that, you know, are maybe not the most expensive, and still be able to make scapes. Like, I literally haven't bought any new plants or any new hardscape in a while, so yeah, I'm trying to keep it as simple as I can. Ever since I started using the brush, right? I used to look at people using brushes in their scapes, and I'm like, oh my god, they're just trying to be fancy. I know I was one of those people, but trust me, a brush like this really helps. It just makes everything easier. Like, look how quickly you can get all that sound in the back into formation, or just get it out of the front glass. The only reason why I got it is because this that is really annoying. I just don't like the metal hitting the glass. It's just, and with this, like, you just don't hear anything. All right, so I'm literally holding a bucket of hardscape here. It's gonna be rocks, and this rock here in particular has been just calling my name the entire time. Just the texture that it has. This rock definitely has to go like somewhere in the front. Maybe not there. Maybe like Luckily, I do have a pretty good, pretty good arrangement of rocks here. Not all of them have that texture, so I do run the risk of it having, or just it looking a little bit weird. But here's the thing with like hardscape, right? You got to kind of just play around with it as much as you can, because hardscape can be a little tricky to get right, especially when you have like minimal amount of hardscape. All right, so this is what I came up with. Yeah, I think it looks good. I brought this rock out forward so that it would kind of break up that line, as well as this one. And then I did keep this one here because I like how that front area looks. And I changed some of these rocks out because I do need to add some height to the background with some aqua soil. That way I can plant some like stem plants. Obviously, in a shallow tank, stem plants are like not the best idea. Obviously, there is bigger shallow tanks than this one, right? So it could have been maybe like 12 inches by, who knows, 25. I don't know, just an example. And it would still, you know, it'd be probably like this high here, and it would just be very long. But I will add some stem plants that, you know, I probably just have to manage and keep them like very short, trim them up as often as I can. But yeah, I think now I'm actually gonna put in the wood. I only have one small piece of wood, but I think that's all I need for the scape. And this is the piece of wood I have. I was thinking something like this. It's literally as simple as that. Just look at that. That works perfect. Maybe I can switch it, have it face forward a little bit like this, or maybe have it stick out more, something like that. But I just love it whenever you like try something and like it works first time. That's probably one of the best feelings because you don't have to like move it around and finick with it and, you know, oh, what about here? What about, like, literally just plop it down and you're like, oh my God. Like, you can just picture it and you can already see that it's gonna look great. All right, now what I need to do is I need to add sand all over. And then I have some gravel that I'm gonna use as kind of like a barrier as well between the sand and the rock, just to try to stop the whatever aqua soil I'm gonna put in here from migrating to the front. All right, now that we have the sand in there, now all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some decorative gravel. I want to block as much as I can. Like, for example, in this corner, there's a small gap where aqua soil. Obviously, no matter what you do to block aqua soil, if for some reason aqua soil ends up in the sand, somehow it could either be a fish. Sometimes if you have shrimp, dude, they'll carry gravel. I've seen them literally pick up gravel and carry it. You know, maybe not like long distances, but little by little, you know, eventually it ends up in the sand. But I'm just gonna use some of this decorative gravel. By the way, this is literally all this that I'm using is super cheap. The rock is from a landscaping supply. The sand is from Home Depot, play sand. This, I'm gonna go ahead and say, I'm trying to get it. Decorative sand, decorative gravel is from Home Depot. It's literally all so inexpensive. At least if you're into this hobby, you know how expensive it can be to buy like the wheel or the Rio Shingu and all that stuff. Obviously, I would love to be able to buy it because it looks amazing. I'm not knocking it, but since I can't afford that right now, we'll just use what we can. One thing I almost forgot to do, and I do this very, very often, don't forget to lock down your wood. If you're scaping and you have wood going in your scape, do not forget to lock it down. This wood has been underwater many, many times, but still you can run the risk of it floating. This is actually the first piece of wood that I bought, the first piece of hardscape I bought when I first started getting into the hobby. But all you need to do, get a small piece of paper towel, fold it up, use some super glue, liquid super glue, and just lock it down. It's very simple. Luckily for this one, I literally only need like one piece. I probably need to fold it a little bit more just so that it's thicker and it sits well on the rock and on the wood. And that's literally all you need. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna add some flue ball stratum in the back. I'm gonna use a decent amount of the one that's brand new. And then I'm gonna end up using some of the old aqua soil from another scape, just so that I can save some of this aqua soil as well for other scapes that are gonna be about this size or smaller. That way the plant still has some nutrients down at the bottom, and I'll probably still add like 1 or 2 root tabs just to make sure. And like always, I'm going to use the API root tabs. The API root tabs are my favorite so far. They've given me great results. Every time I use these, dude, the plants just grow like crazy. I always say they find the roots find the tabs or the nutrients so quick. Literally within like a week, you'll see the results. All right, so that's it for the hardscape and the sand and the soil and the root tabs. Now I need to get the plants that I'm going to be using in here and start getting them prepared and then putting them in the tank. I wasn't recording. I forgot to press record, but the first plant that went in is this Hygrophila angustifolia. This is one of my favorite plants. It's a stem plant. It can grow very large, very tall, but if you keep it, if you maintain it, it'll stay small. So I'm just gonna make sure I stay on top of it, trim it down every now and then so that it stays small. But this is the first plant that's going in. Next plant is gonna be one of the very common plants in my scapes, the S. repens. I don't think you could ever go wrong with S. repens. S. repens is just overall a very nice plant, and it is kind of like a mid-ground to foreground plant. So I'm going to be putting this one, because I don't have much left. This is literally all I have left. So I'm going to put it, I think, here, that in the front, so that it's visible and it looks good. Next plant is going to be some Lobelia cardinalis, another plant that's been very popular for me lately in my scapes. Um, This plant is very nice. This is like the last two little stems that I have, but these actually, they can propagate very quickly. All you got to do is trim them and then replant. So I'm going to put these in the back, kind of towards the back, because they can grow, to the dimensions of this tank, they will outgrow this tank. Next, we have some Rotala rotundifolia blood red or orange juice. When I bought it, it said orange juice. I don't know if that's a different name that people have given it, but Rotala rotundifolia blood red. This plant is one of my favorite red plants. It looks so good. I'm telling you, with the right lighting, red plants probably just look better than any other plant. But I was a little hesitant to put this in here because it's a stem plant. They grow very quick. But again, I'm just gonna try to keep it as short as possible, maintain it, and yeah, I think it'll look good. You're just gonna put like a little pop of red towards the back. All right, now tell me what scape would be complete without putting some of the very famous tripartita in. You can't go wrong with tripartita. So we're gonna put some of that right here in the front. Tripartita spreads so quick, man. Literally all you gotta do is plant like one tiny little bunch, and in a couple of weeks it'll just take over. And now we're gonna add the last plant. Oh, the last plant that's going in here is gonna be some Hygrophila pinnatifida. Hygrophila pinnatifida, literally my favorite stem plant right now. This thing is amazing. So we're gonna dot it around a couple areas because this plant is actually a stem plant, but that could also be used as an epiphyte, which is crazy. And I have a few little stems of it here, so I'm just gonna plant that in some of these areas so I can give it a little more of a like an orangey, reddish, brownish tone, and it'll also grow very quick. All right, so here's the tank after having been scaped, putting in the soil and putting in the plants. Obviously, it's not really coming alive just yet, but there's a decent amount of plants in there, which is good, especially the stem plants that are going to help with the water quality. But yeah, I think it looks great. Maybe I'll add a couple of bits of gravel like in the foreground area or the sand area, just because it looks a little bit empty. But as of now, the tank is complete. And now all I got to do is put it on the shelf and then fill it up. All right, guys. So it has been now about 24 hours since I set up the shallow tank. By the way, the only reason why I'm doing this, where I'm using like the front-facing camera, is because I feel like a lot of the time I don't really show my face in the videos. Like when I'm scaping or I'm building a tank, putting it together, I feel like all you see is like my torso down and then just the tank. So I'm gonna try to do more of this, where like I talk to you face to face. And also, I feel like I don't show you like I feel like the angle, maybe I need to fix it, or I maybe need to do like more close-up shots of the builds. You know, like as I'm building it, maybe I can get like a shot like from up here, maybe like up close. But I just wanted to show you the tank after 24 hours. It looks great. At night, I was looking at the tank because I had the light on for about 10 hours almost. Um, I was looking at it and I was like, you know what? I feel like it needs a little bit more of a pop. So I did end up adding some. This is Luigia Palustria Super Red. I also put some back here. You can see the little guppies in there. They are already acclimated because this tank has no heater, and then they were actually in this little tank down here. They were just being held there for a little while. But yeah, so I put some Luigia Super Red, and then I added a bit more of what is this tripartita here, some there as well down here, and then I added a little bit of moss, just because I feel like it needed a little bit more. I've heard, and I've been doing my research. Guppies tend to do better in planted tanks. Obviously, you can breed them in an empty tank, right? But people say that they do better. Basically, any fish always does better when you have plants and like hardscape in there. So I was like, you know what? Let me add as much as I can. But if you look at the tank, honestly, I feel like a lot of the times, even for me, that I've been making tanks for a little bit over a year now, I feel like a lot of the time you don't really appreciate what you build. But like once you put it together, right, and then once you see it maybe like a day or two later when the water clears up and the plants are actually standing upright, you can really see exactly what you like. I think this looks great. Quite honestly, I feel like I did a great job. But again, I guess it's kind of like that self doubt at the beginning, and I feel like I got to stop doing that. And you guys should too, as well, because honestly, if you're being creative and then you feel like you're happy with what you made, you should just appreciate it for what it is. But anyway, enough of that. Let's just go ahead and get these little guppies into the water. All right, so I put the camera up as close as I could to where you can still see the whole tank. And now we're gonna put in the little guppies. By the way, these are tuxedo guppies that I've bred myself. These are all from two, well, actually three females that gave birth. And these are the ones that made it, I guess, the strongest ones. So now we're gonna put them in here and hope that they themselves breed. Come on, guys. I know the cup is nice, but get out. There you go. All right, now some of you guys might be wondering, is it okay to put guppies or put any fish in after 24 hours of having set up the tank? And quite honestly, people have different opinions. You know, there's some science behind it, but for me, I've always had success when I've used water from a mature tank. So in this tank here, I used about 50% mature water from another tank. Actually, the tank that these little guys were in, I took it from there and I put it in here. So quite frankly, if you know how to do that, if you've done it before a couple of times and you've had success, then I don't really think there's anything wrong with. By the way, look at how these little guys are just schooling. See if I can zoom. Oh, no, here they come. It's rare to see guppies just do that where they're all just together. I guess they're probably doing that just because they don't know the tank yet. But anyway, back to what I was saying. If you've had success in the past where you've done that, where you set up a tank, you use mature water from a different tank or even a filter, and you've nothing has happened where you've lost a lot of fish. Maybe sometimes you'll lose one or two, right? But I feel like if you know how to do that, there's really no problem with it. A lot of people say no, regardless of the tank just being set up and you using water from another tank. Maybe you should wait 2 weeks so that it cycles. Honestly, guys, I don't feel like there's any need for it. I'm not some sort of expert, I'm not a professional, but I just go based off what I've done before and has worked for me. So, quite frankly, I don't think there's any problem with that. I'll just leave that, like I said, to your discretion. If you want to do that, if you want to try that for yourself, then go ahead. All right, guys, so there it is. The tank is complete. I feel like the guppies are just going to be very, very happy in this tank. I feel like almost, what is it, 6.5 gallons of water is more than enough for guppies. Obviously, once they start breeding more, I'm going to have to change them to a different or bigger tank, or maybe just move them to multiple tanks. But I'm probably going to end up giving a lot of them away anyway. And again, there's no like real specific reason as to why I'm breeding them, other than the fact that I think guppies are amazing. I love tuxedo guppies. That orange and blue coloration that they have, I think is just amazing. But anyway, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this build. I'm gonna try to get a little bit more creative when it comes to building tanks, in the sense that maybe I can get shots from above, shots from the side. Maybe when I'm planting, I can kind of have the camera up closer. But if there's any tips you want to give me, or maybe how I should kind of record the videos, go ahead and leave it down in the comments. And yeah, I appreciate you. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I'll see you in the next one.